What's good, YouTube? It's Shane Vandergrift representing Alpha Strength Gym. So today's video we're talking about what you should eat for your body type, or what we're going to refer to as macro typing. The 3 body types, which really refers to the way someone is naturally built, right? Whether they're big boned or they're just rails. So let's get to it. Number 1 we're going to talk about is an ectomorph. An ectomorph is what we refer to in bro terms as a hard gainer. These athletes or these individuals are usually, they have slim or slender like limbs, right? Their arms don't have a whole lot of muscle or fat. Same for their legs, and then they have slender bodies. They are just naturally slim types of people. They can eat whatever they want, it seems, and never seem to gain any weight. They're shoving their face full of pizza, burgers, whatever, and then there's no aesthetic repercussions for that, right? And they're often, they're runners, long distance athletes. Ectomorphs make great candidates for those types of sports. So obviously, if you're a hard gainer, you can afford to eat more food. The reason they can afford to eat so much is because they have a very low sensitivity to carbohydrates. In other words, their metabolism is way up here, and when they eat carbs, metabolism crushes those things. It's not really hard for them to digest carbohydrates. So they can afford to eat a lot more carbs. Let's say, for example, this let's say it's an ectomorph and they are a male. They can afford to eat 4,000 calories a day. Let's say that was their number. Then we're looking at a 50 to 60% range on their carbohydrates that they could take in. 50% of 4,000 calories, 2,000 calories, right? So you're talking like 500 carbs, which is a crap ton. But they could eat 500 carbs in a day, roughly, if they were eating 4,000 calories, right? Because this is the percentages are all relative to the total number of calories they're taking in per day. And then their protein intake is 15 to 25%. So you're looking at like 1,000 calories in protein if they were eating 4,000 calories a day, or 500 calories in protein if they were eating 2,000, and so on. Fats are at 25% across the board. I kind of left them alone because we do need a certain number of fats, and because fats are so calorie dense, it's kind of hard to keep the number very low, right? We can really, it's not too bad to hit the 20% mark, but going below 20% on your fat intake is pretty difficult to do. So I left them at 20%, 25%, I apologize, and then we're going to change the amount of carbs and proteins you eat per body type. So an ectomorph can really load up on the carbs, and they can afford to even potentially increase their fats if they decrease their carbs and increase their protein, etc. But they can afford a lot more calories. A mesomorph now. Mesomorph is what you see usually in your more explosive athletes, your muscular athletes, your bodybuilders, your football players, your rugby guys, even basketball guys, baseball players, etc. Explosive athletes, man, they can pack on muscle. They're usually aesthetically pleasing, right? It's what we often aspire to be. Ectomorphs spend their time trying to look like mesomorphs. Endomorphs spend their time trying to look like mesomorphs. So if you are a mesomorph and you can lose and gain weight pretty easily, should be thankful for that. I personally am in between these two. I would refer to myself as an ecto / mesomorph. I have a hard time gaining a lot of weight, but I also don't really have a hard time maintaining weight, and I can pack on some muscle. I mean, it's not impossible for me. So a mesomorph, they're losing gain weight at will, like we said. They're often explosive athletes. Now, they are more carb sensitive than an ectomorph, meaning they can't take in as many calories, they can't eat as many carbs and really get away with it. So if you look at their chart, we've reduced the carbs from 50 to 60% down to 40 to 50% intake on these guys. So if they were taking in 4,000 calories like these guys, which is crazy, right? But if they were taking in 4,000 calories and then you reduce the amount from, at 50%, if you reduce from 50 to 40%, then we went from taking in 2,000 calories of carbohydrates to 1,600 calories carbohydrates. So from 500 carbs to 400 carbs. And our protein now has increased. Mainly because we don't want to increase our fat intake. Right? A lot of times this is unhealthy. There's a lot of negative benefits to increase fat intake, but And it's also, if you're eating healthy foods, it's hard to increase your fat intake a lot without eating something that's not so healthy for you, right? You're not supporting yourself and being the healthiest, strongest version of yourself all the time whenever you increase fat amounts. It's another reason we left it at 25. So if we increase our protein intake, right? We're adding chicken, you add a protein supplement, you add whatever it may be to your diet, and then you're going to decrease the amount of carbs. And the way you can do that is you can change not just the amount of food you eat, but the types of the food you eat. So you can really still fill your plate up and really get full, but instead of eating sweet potatoes, brown rice, and oatmeal, maybe we're going to exchange some of that for vegetables, right? For some green leafy vegetables, for carrots, for some lower calorie, more fibrous types of carbohydrates. And that's going to allow us to keep our calories much lower. And it's probably going to decrease the total amount of carbohydrates you're taking into your body at the time, allowing us to either get lean or gain weight in a cleaner fashion, right? We're not dirty bulky. So, and then if we move over to an endomorph, okay, an endomorph, this is the guy or the girl that, man, they're just what we call big bone, right? What we often hear called big bones. They're a bigger individual. They have a larger midsection. They do not have any problem putting on weight, but they often struggle to lose weight. But they can also get strong really fast. Like we often see these people, strong men, power lifters, our offensive and defensive linemen, man, they're big bodies, but they can get jacked, right? They can get huge, but getting lean often is difficult for them. So the way we change their macros is it's a lot more drastic, right? It's basically we've exchanged carbohydrates on the ectomorph side for protein on the endomorph side. So we're going to decrease the amount of carbohydrates drastically. They still are taking in carbohydrates, especially if they're athletes. They need carbohydrates. They may even look at decreasing the amount of fat and increasing carbs if they're athletes. But if you're an average individual, you're not going really hard, or you're just in the off season, you're not really competing, then you could probably get away with reducing these carbs pretty drastically, but you still need to take in a significant amount of protein. Now you're looking at 50% of your calorie intake being proteins. Now we said they're endomorph, so that means with higher carb sensitivity, lower metabolism, meaning they're not going to be eating 4,000 calories a day. Not going to happen. So if they're eating 2,000 calories a day, 50% of that being protein, then we're looking at 1,000 calories. That's 250 grams of protein per day. And if they're an endomorph, especially if they're a male, 250 may be pretty close to their body weight. Not their lean body mass, which some people would argue that's how you should gauge the protein. My argument, and I'm not saying they're wrong, but when you're talking about eating for your body type and you're talking about macro ratios and calories and fitting your macros into your amount of calories you're allowing yourself per day. For example, I'm allowed to eat 2,000 or 2,500 or 3,000, and you're trying to break these percentages and ratios up within that calorie count, then yeah, we start getting to where, okay, I'm going to eat more than what I actually weigh in my grams of protein. The reason for that is because we're so sensitive to carbohydrates. Okay, I believe that endomorphs, okay, are more capable of handling the protein than they are the carbohydrates. If they're healthier individuals because they ate this way, then that's the way they should be eating. Now, their carbohydrates are probably going to have to come, they can eat, some complex carbohydrates, obviously some fruit, but they really need to be eating a lot of fibrous vegetables to keep their carbs low, but they want to still bring in a lot of nutrients and a lot of value to when they do eat their carbohydrates. So a lot of vitamins, a lot of minerals, a lot of protein-packed foods. Now, the negative side of this is it's very hard for, for example, to eat high protein and low carbohydrates. They're going to be really low on the fat side if they're avoiding fatty vegetable sources. So they can reduce their calories that way. But man, when you start eating protein-packed vegetables, you're also eating carbs. Beans, for example, are loaded with their protein, but also with carbohydrates. Rice, for example, rice and beans together give you a complete amino acid profile, but they're not going to support support you when it comes to reducing your amount of carbohydrates. So, you know, if you're a vegan, this is not going to work for you. You're really just going to have to focus on your calorie intake and what you do in the gym, and really try to drastically reduce your fat intake when it comes to the foods that you eat. Otherwise though, if you're a meat eater like myself, this is very achievable, and honestly very enjoyable, like steak and steamed vegetables. You know, you can wear that out. So that's it, guys. The way to balance your macros out depending on your goals, right? If you're a big guy, you're an offensive lineman, and you're trying to cut weight, especially in the off season, I think this is a great option for you. If you're a running back, for example, I'm not talking football because I used to coach football, but if you're a running back, a linebacker type of guy, you're a bigger, stronger individual, but not you don't hold a lot of fat, right? But you're trying to gain weight or cut weight for that matter. You can eat a lot more balanced macro profile, so you can eat a sufficient amount of carbs, really eat some protein, take in the meat, and just bang the weights, and you're probably going to gain muscle, right? As long as you're eating enough food. And then in Ectomorph, man, you're going to have to like shove food down your throat, even when you don't want to eat, to gain or pack on muscle. Like a monstrous plate of brown rice and a whole bunch of chicken, and just eat and eat. And when you get really full, you're going to go back and get a big cup of brown rice, and you're going to eat it again. It is hard to gain weight when you are a hard gainer or an ectomorph. You really have to focus on eating consistently throughout a day, not just once a day, not one big meal. It's got to be multiple large meals. If you're an endomorph, you are going to benefit from multiple meals, but probably multiple small meals, because as soon as you get really hungry, discipline goes out the window and you want to eat everything you see. Right? Like, don't go to some kid's birthday party starving to death with cake and ice cream. So, that's it for this video. If you're interested to see more like this, please let me know. Drop any questions you have down in the comments below. I've got some more nutritional videos coming at you. If you like the video, like, subscribe, and check out some of the other videos. Thanks.